So on the last video, we talked about how you can use visuals to look at an equation with a balance scale. And this time I'm going to teach you a little bit differently, and I'm going to show you the way that I think that you're going to remember the easiest. So this right here, the equation, the equal sign, is going to be the street. And there's always two sides of the street, just like there's two sides of the balance scale. And this X is the bomb, or X is the bomb. Or the variable, right? Any letter is the variable. Variable is your bomb. And everything needs to get away from the bomb, right? You want to save everyone and move everything to the other side of the street. So the 5 right here, we're going to get rid of the 5 first, and I'm going to show you why in just a minute. So the 5, we want to move completely over to the other side. And to do that, we want 0 here. We don't want to leave anything behind. We want 0. So if you're subtracting 5 to get 0, or negative 5 plus 5 right here, we've got negative 5 plus 5. Now that is 0. And so we're going to move that 5 to the other side of the street. We're going to add it over. And we put the 5 here to show there is no more 5 here. They're gone completely, and that's what you want to happen. You don't want to leave anybody behind. So now you have 2x. You've got your bomb still, and then a 2. 7 plus 5 is 12. And we want to get rid of the 2, right? You want everything away from the bomb, everything away from x. And so to get rid of the 2, that means you have 2 unknowns, or it's like your balance scale. You have 2 unknowns that are balanced with 12. So each one, because they're the same amount, would have to be 6, or we would divide it. This is multiplication. So we're going to divide by the 2. And the reason this gets rid of the 2 here is because 2 divided by 2 is 1. 2 divided 2 is 1. So now we have x, or the bomb, we have 1x, which is the same thing as just putting x. So 12 divided by 2 over here is 6. So now what you have is you have the bomb by itself. You have 6 on the other side. So everything got moved over, and x is equal to the value of 6, which means that if you go back to what we had originally, if I put in a 6 for the x, then this needs to be equal on both sides. Or I've got 12 minus 5, and 12 take away 5 is 7, and 7 equals 7, which is true. 7 does equal 7. Therefore, the x value has to be 6. We were trying to find a value for that unknown that made that equation equal. So the reason that we moved to the 5 over first was because of right here. Notice we get 0 here, and we get the number 1 here. This is a 1. 0 always comes before 1. So you always want to get 0 before you get 1 when you're solving your equation, because 0 always comes before 1 when you're saying numbers. Therefore, you always want to get 0 first. And 2 divided 2 is 1. So get your 0 first. Okay, we're going to do another example. Here's your street. We want to get everything away from the x. That means we want to get rid of the 5, and we want to get rid of the 9. And to be able to get 0 first, we're going to get rid of the 9. So if you have 9, we're going to take it away to get 0. You've left nothing behind. They're all moved over to the other side. So now we have 5x. Negative 11 take away 9 is more negative, or negative 20. And then from here, we have 5 unknowns equal to negative 20. Or this is multiplication, and we're going to divide out the 5. And 5 divide 5 right here is a 1. And it's really, really helpful to put that 0 on the 9s and the 1 through the 5s. So now we're left with x equals 20 divided 5 is 4, and a negative divided positive is negative. So we moved everything over. We know we're done because the bomb is by itself. It's all moved over, and all we have is x equaling the value of negative 4. So if I go back to what I had originally, and I replace the x value with the negative 4 that we just got, 5 times negative 4 is negative 20, plus 9 and negative 20 plus 9, is that really negative 11? And yes, it is. So that means that we checked it and made sure that we had the correct answer. Okay, we're going to do this next example. We have our street. We have negative 6 minus x. Okay, we want to see what we need to get rid of. We need to get rid of the 6. And then also, we're going to have to get rid of that negative sign because x needs to be by itself. You can't have a negative with it. So we have a negative 6, and I want to move it over and leave nothing behind. So if you're down 6, we need to go back up 6 to be able to get 0. So I'm going to add the 6. Negative 6 plus 6 is 0. I'm going to bring down negative x. And 9 plus 6 is 15. So now, notice I brought that negative down because we didn't get rid of it yet. You have to keep it. And there's a hidden number right here that we can't see, and it is the number 1. Remember, 1x is the same as x. So when there's not a number in front, you can put a 1 there. And we know that when there's a number next to our variable, that's multiplication. So this time, I'm not only going to divide the 1, but I'm going to divide a negative 1 because x needs to be alone, and you need to get rid of that negative with the 1. So negative 1 divided negative 1 is a positive 1, so they cancel out, and you get just x. 15 divided negative 1 is negative 15. So we have the value of x. If I were going to plug this back in to my equation that I had to begin, I would have negative 6 subtract negative 15 equaling 9. So this, I not only have the subtract from what I had to begin, but I'm also plugging in a negative number. So from here, this, if you remember, subtracting a negative is the same as adding. So negative 6 plus 15, is that really equal to 9? And yes, it is. 6 negatives and 15 positives is 9 positives. Okay, so here's our street. This one looks a little bit different, but we're still going to get our 0 first and then the 1. So we're going to move this 3 first. We need to get rid of the 3 and the 6. So that's what you look at. What do I need to get rid of? I want to get the x by itself and move everything over. So I'm going to get rid of negative 3 and add it, which is 0. I've got x over 6. And then here, what's left, I've got negative 1 plus 3 is 2 positives. And now I got this division by 6. So to get rid of that, I'm going to be multiplying. When you multiply, the number is on the top. And so I'm going to multiply by 6 here. We got to do it to both sides of the street. 6 over 6, or 6 divides 6, here is 1. So we did get rid of that 6. I'm going to bring the x down, and 2 times 6 is 12. So if I plug that back in, I'm going to put 12 on top. Over 6 minus 3 equals negative 1. And I'm going to check to see if that worked. 12 divided 6 is 2, minus 3 is negative 1. So that's true. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. And that worked. Okay, same thing with this one. I'm going to get rid of the negative 2. I'm going to get rid of the minus 5. If we're subtracting 5, I want 0. So I'm going to add the 5. Add the 5. I get 0. Negative 5 plus 5 is 0. That's what we want. X over negative 2. And if I add those, I get negative 3. 8 negatives and 5 positives. So what we want to do from here is we want to get rid of that negative 2. That negative 2 is dividing everything, dividing that bomb. So we're going to multiply negative 2 to both sides. Multiply negative 2. Over here I got negative 2 over negative 2, which is 1. I got my 0, I got my 1, and x comes down by itself. The bomb is alone. Negative 2 times negative 3 is a positive 6. X is all alone. So I'm going to check my answer. I'm going to plug it back in. I got I got just a 6. And then over negative 2 minus 5. And for that, 6 over negative 2 is negative 3. Take away 5 more is really negative 8. That's true. So I got the correct answer. Okay, this one looks a little more complicated, but we can do it. So we got a 6, and we got this 5 and this 2. We're going to have to get rid of all of this. But again, we're going to start by getting 0. So this 6 right here, it's a positive 6. The minus is not on the 6. The 6 is positive because there's nothing in front of it. So I'm going to subtract the 6. 6 take away 6 is 0. And what's left? I've got negative 19 minus 6 is negative 25. More negatives. I'm going to bring down this symbol. Negative, and then the 5 over 2, and then x. There's a couple of ways to do this. I think the easiest way is there's this divide by 2. Well, I know if it's divide 2, I can multiply 2. So I'm going to multiply 2 to both sides. 2 over 2 is 1. That leaves me with negative 50 on this side. And what's left here? I got negative 5x. Remember, you didn't use the negative yet. You need to bring it down. And then last, this should look like what we've done. This negative 5 is multiplying, so I need to get rid of that. I'm going to divide negative 5. Negative 5 divide negative 5 is a positive 1. Everything needs to get away from the x. 50 divide 5 makes a positive 10. Negative, negative make positive. And then, yes, you would want to plug that number back in and make sure that that really is going to give you negative 19. The way I would do this, I would do 10 divided by 2 right here. That's 5. 5 times 5 is 25. And 6 take away 25 really is negative 19. So that worked. Here, we're going to get rid of the 8. What do I get rid of? Everything needs to get away from the bomb. And the 6 and the 5. So I'm going to get my 0 first. It's add 8, so I'm going to minus it. Get rid of it completely. Move it over to the other side. 0. We got 6 over 5 x, and this is negative 30. I see this divide 5. I'm going to multiply that 5 first.